Gentlemen, on our Manly Chunks of Wisdom episode today, we're going to hear some quotes from Winston Churchill.
Manly Chunks of Wisdom on the Manlihood ManCast.
Hey fellas, grab your calendars because we've got an event coming up that you do not want to miss. So October 28th, which is a Saturday of 2023, from 5 o'clock to 8, we are going to relax and smash right on Minard Run in Bradford, Pennsylvania. It's an axe throwing place, and it's going to be our Manlihood Season 7 launch party. We are celebrating the fact that we've been running for 10 years. We're celebrating that this is the launch of our 7th season, and we're celebrating over 700,000 downloads, well on our way to 1 million downloads. So get pumped for a killer night with hanging out with the guys, good times, and axe throwing. It's going to be great. So the folks at Relax and Smash are giving us a fantastic deal. Normally it costs 15 or 20 bucks if you want to throw. They're going to let us do it for $5 a person. And there's going to be a food truck on hand as well. So if you want to throw some axes, grab some dinner, hang out with the guys, and have a good time, that's what we're going to be doing on October 28th from 5 to 8 p.m. So yeah, it's going to be great. Bring your friends, invite your neighbors. Let's go party in style so we can kick off this season 7 of the Manlihood ManCast. Again, that's the Manlihood ManCast season 7 launch party, and it's happening on October 28th, 2023 from 5 to 8 at Relax and Smash on Minard Run in Bradford, PA. Listen, even if you're from out of town, this is worth coming into town for because we're going to have a good time. So come join us and celebrate together. See you guys there.
This is the Manlihood ManCast.
Gentlemen, welcome to Manly Chunks of Wisdom. I'm glad you guys could join us today. This is our first installment of this feature in Season 7, and what we like to do is we like to take some wisdom from some of the greats. The goal is so that we can be able to bring you information that helps you without you having to read all of the books and all of the speeches of someone like Winston Churchill. We're going to find the chunks, the nuggets of truth and wisdom that you can apply to your life. So, hey, that's the goal, right? Let's boil it down and let's make it as simple as possible. So, Winston Churchill, you may know, was the Prime Minister of Great Britain during World War II. Now, he served 2 different terms, not consecutively, but spread out a little bit. The first term was during World War II, so basically he was a leader of the free world. You know, we had the United States and we had Great Britain, and they were probably 2 of the strongest forces in that world war. And so he led his people through a crisis where they were fighting against Germany, and Germany was attacking Great Britain because they're a lot closer to them than we are. So they were attacking civilians, and it was a very common and brutal war, and he led his people through that. So let's look at these quotes today from Winston Churchill. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. You know, guys, this is something we need to really address and really think about. Sometimes I think we get so fixated on the outcome of a situation that we forget that sometimes continuing is what matters. It's not whether you win or you lose as much as let's keep going. I think that's what Winston Churchill is saying here. He says, "We are the masters of the unsaid words, but slaves of those we let slip out." Yeah, man, I'm going to tell you what, that's probably one of my biggest struggles in life is sometimes I say too much. I talk about things I shouldn't, and when I do, those things have a direct impact on my life. If you don't say something that you think you should say, but you know what, I'm going to hold that back, you're the master of that. But once you say it, it's up to other people how they interpret it, and the way they interpret it can affect you greatly. So my advice is to follow this advice from Winston Churchill and be thoughtful and careful before you speak. Be the master of your words. Don't let them master you. Churchill says, you will never reach your destination if you stop and throw stones at every dog that barks. Again, truth. I don't know if you ever served time as a mailman, but, there are circumstances and things in life that come and that try to steal your attention. They try to distract you from your mission. And if you give attention to every single one of those things, every complaint and every distraction that comes your way, what's going to happen to your effectiveness? You're not going to get where you're going because you're spending all your time fighting battles that aren't yours to fight. There's always going to be critics that come against you. Let them talk. What are they going to do? What can they really do to you? There's always going to be arguments that creep up. Is it worth arguing about? Don't let someone else's loud, barking opinion stop you from what you're meant to do. I love this quote as well. Churchill says, we sleep safely at night because rough men stand ready to visit violence on those who would harm us. Let us not forget, gentlemen, the freedom, the security, the safety that we have in this country is because there are other people who are willing to fight to protect. And maybe you're willing to fight to protect. Maybe that's one of you, but, we talk about the idea of those lines, like the thin blue line or the thin red line, which would be the firefighters, right? But there are people who are military, who are first responders. These people are ready to do whatever needs to happen to keep the rest of us safe. And regardless of what you think of things like the military-industrial complex or the police state, which are some legitimate concerns and things that I think those of us with any sense of constitutional understanding might have sometimes. At the same time, the willingness of those people to stand in the gap, to stand up against criminals, to stand up against oppressors, and to stand up against foreign invaders, that willingness is something that's admirable. They're willing to go out and not only risk their lives, but they're willing to take lives. And that is something that we do. We can enjoy our security and our safety because these men are willing to be violent, to be merciless. And I think that's something that we ought to keep in mind and remember, that the strength of defense is something that we need to honor and we need to be prepared for. And I honestly think, a good man is capable of great violence. I know that a lot of people would hear that and be really upset. My family sleeps safe because I'm here. And if there was a problem, I'm going to step up and be willing to protect. And I think we all need to kind of have that mindset sometimes. Churchill says, when the eagles are silent, the parrots begin to jabber. How true is that? When the things that are meant to lead and to be the highest order, those men that are meant to be in charge, when they're not saying anything, the people who just run their mouths will run their mouths. And I'm not saying that we have to necessarily spend a lot of time as leaders talking, but I do know that when we deliver the answers that people need, it's a lot less opportunity for the parrots to run their mouths. All the great things are simple, and many can be expressed in a single word: freedom, justice, honor, duty, mercy, hope. Good stuff, Churchill. Freedom, justice, honor, duty, mercy, hope. Those things are simple, and you don't have to explain them. Churchill says, you have enemies? Good. That means you've stood up for something sometime in your life. And that is the truth. If you've got deep convictions, if you believe in justice, if you believe that something is right and you stand for it, there's going to be people that come against you. Don't worry so much about whether you're liked by everybody. You're going to tick some people off sometimes. That's all right. Usually the people that stand against you when you're doing the thing that you know is right are the people that you didn't need or want in your corner anyway. They reveal themselves. Churchill says, men occasionally stumble over the truth, but most of them pick themselves up and hurry off as if nothing had happened. You know, the truth will knock you down sometimes. And I think what we need to do is to say, all right, here's the truth. I'm facing this truth, and I'm going to adjust my life because of this truth, instead of pretend that it's not there. You know, I think it's Edmund Burke, that said, a man has to be able to hear the worst possible thing said about him. And that's the truth, that we need to be able to hear and to bear that truth that sometimes is hard to bear. And if we don't allow that truth to change our life, what's the point of it? Churchill said, if you're going through hell, keep going. I know so many people that just kind of like settle into that personal hell. I mean, I'm not talking about, the spiritual hell. I do believe that exists, but I'm talking about like the things that we call hell here in our life. The trials, the tribulations, the struggles. Yeah, don't camp there. Keep going. Fight like hell. Fight back against it. Push against it. Get out of the darkness so that your life can get better. Churchill said, my tastes are simple. I'm easily satisfied with the best. I think, Churchill was a little bit cocky, I think, and I think that's a good thing. And he wanted the best. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've had a lot of good conversations with my brother who has taught me a thing or two. I kind of grew up being the guy that buys the budget version of things. Like I'm perfectly content with a drill from Harbor Freight that I spent a lot less money on. But you know what? You end up spending a lot more money because it breaks and you got to buy another one. And he's got nice tools. And he says, I have this tool because this tool is going to last me longer because it's better made. And yeah, sometimes it's okay to be like, you know what? I'm going to hold out and I'm going to wait and I'm going to buy the better tool rather than buy the cheap one. History will be kind to me, for I intend to write it, Winston Churchill says. And, the whole idea of the victors get to write the history. And here's the thing. I mean, we do look at Churchill with almost a reverence these days because of what he did. But let's remember that when he got to the end of that term during that war, the people didn't vote him in. He lost his job. He was no longer prime minister for a term or two because he was, not so liked. The good news is he was able to run again and he was in office again. But I think it's something to keep in mind, guys, that, you get to tell your story. And in order to do that, you need to have a good story, right? Like, if we're the kind of guy who's not a good guy, when we try to write the story about us, it's not, you can't spin that. You need to be able, that story needs to be true. So how about we be the best we can be so that the stories told of us are good? Churchill says, success is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. I like that. It's so easy for us to picture there's a formula for success. We do the right thing, and we do the right thing, and then we win, and then we're successful. But the truth is, to get there, there's a lot of failure so that we can learn and adjust and fail again, and learn and adjust and fail. And that's how we get to success. And when you can do it without giving up, without resigning yourself, without that loss of enthusiasm, that's how we succeed. Churchill says, tact is the ability to tell someone to go to hell in such a way that they look forward to the trip. I've got a friend who was always really good at bringing correction into my life in such a way where I appreciated it. I have a lot of people who try to bring correction in my life, and I don't appreciate it. They didn't have the tact for me to be able to hear what they were saying. And so it's really a powerful tool. So if you think about it, as you guys are talking to people, especially when you're telling them, look, you're wrong, and you need to get yourself lined up or whatever, those things that you're saying to people that they don't want to hear, you can deliver that with tact. It's a skill set you should develop so that, you could tell them to go to hell and they'd look forward to the trip. that tact is going to make you a valuable person because they'll be able to listen to the things you're saying and be able to receive it and appreciate it. Churchill says, I'm fond of pigs. Dogs look up to us. Cats look down on us. Pigs treat us as equals. He also says, it's not enough that we do our best. Sometimes we must do what is required. And that's truth. I think that understanding that there are things in the world that are required of us, do those things first and do them well. We want to just be like, hey, I'm going to do the best I can do. Well, what if what's required of you is more than what you think you can do? Then you need to level up so you can do that. For myself, I'm an optimist. It does not seem to be much use to be anything else. Very true, Mr. Churchill. I know I have a lot of friends who will look at me and they will, view me as kind of pie in the sky because I tend to look on the bright side, or I tend to look on the bright side of people in particular. And, what's the worst case scenario if you were optimistic and you're hoping for the best and you're believing the best about people and you find out you're wrong? I think the worst case scenario is, I get a little bit disappointed. Well, disappointment isn't that bad. It's an emotion and you can overcome it. But what if you didn't trust that person? Or what if you didn't hope for the best and so then you didn't get the best? That's not useful. Churchill says the greatest lesson in life is to know that even fools are right sometimes. Yes. I think about a lesson my father taught me, which is that you can learn something from everybody. And this is something that I think we have to be willing to do. A lot of men these days are looking out across the culture and they see somebody that's on the opposite side of the culture that they're on. Maybe the pink-haired nose ring Antifa protester on the street. Not going to lie, that person makes me mad. I don't agree with their philosophy on life. I don't agree with what they're fighting for. I don't agree with it. But if I really want to be truthful, if I will take the time to listen, sometimes that person might say something beneficial that I should listen to. And this is true on the other side as well. So if I kind of leaned that direction, and I see somebody that, wearing a red MAGA hat and, I should listen to what they have to say. Because sometimes even fools are right. The person that you think is wrong, you need to listen because they may have some truth for you. A fanatic is one who can't change his mind and won't change the subject. Do not be that guy. We make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. This one also is very good. We think about that, guys. We make a living by working hard and getting a paycheck and making sure we pay our bills and we buy the things we like. But that is a very different thing than making a life by what we give. To be a generous person, to be a caring person, to be a kind person, you do those things, that's really what makes life worth living. Churchill says the price of greatness is responsibility. Now, he would be a person that knows he was one of the most powerful people in the world at a crucial point of history. We consider him a great man. What was it that, what price came along with that? What was it that got him there? It's responsibility. And responsibility is a heavy and hard weight to bear, but that's really the very crux of what leadership is taking responsibility. Churchill says, personally, I'm always ready to learn, although I do not always like being taught. Correct. Let's be humble. Let's let people teach us. He says, attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. Attitude. Now, let's translate that. The word attitude, we think of it as our mindset, the way that we behave, the things that we think. if you look at it from an airplane standpoint, altitude is how high up you are off the ground, and your attitude is the angle, the trajectory of the plane. So let's make sure our attitude is pointing in the right direction, because that makes a big difference. Churchill says, an appeaser is one who feeds a crocodile, hoping it will eat him last. This is good, because we do that, don't we? We try to appease, we try to make the peace, we try to bring people together sometimes, and sometimes there are people that we should not be appeasing. Sometimes we need to stand our ground, because that person is just going to come against us and destroy us. So don't bother appeasing crocodiles. Churchill says, to improve is to change. To be perfect is to change often. I think of, since we were kind of talking about airplanes and attitude and altitude a moment ago, I think of the story that I heard about the moon landing, and when they were flying that direction and they realized, they'd done all these calculations before they got in the plane, or got in the spaceship, but as they're flying along, they realized that they had to constantly make adjustments. They were off course most of the time as they were headed to the moon. Because if you're just a degree off, right, over 1 mile, it's a little bit of space, and over thousands of miles, it's a lot more space. So what they had to do is to keep adjusting their course so that they could get closer and closer. And if they would get off track, they would adjust it again, and they would get on track. And then over time, they would get off track again, and they would adjust it. So that applies also here, because to improve is to change, and to be perfect is to change often. Churchill says, to each there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they're figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do a very special thing, unique to them and fitted to their talents. What a tragedy in that moment, if that moment finds them unprepared or unqualified for that which could have been their finest hour. Are you working to prepare yourself, to better yourself, to make yourself more qualified? Because the day will come when you've got your opportunity to do something truly great. Now, it may not be helping to lead the freed world against a violent dictator, right? Like Churchill. But whatever it is that your moment of greatness is, don't be unprepared and unqualified for it. Work to make yourself worthy of that calling. Churchill says, everyone is in favor of free speech. Hardly a day passes without its being extolled, but some people's idea of it is that they are free to say what they like. But if anyone else says anything back, that is an outrage. I am a big proponent of free speech. I don't like the idea that our speech is being policed, especially not by the government, but also by, big tech or by just the culture in general. I think you've got a right to say what you want to say. But you also have to understand that if you say what you want to say, there are going to be people that disagree with you. At Manlihood, our message is that men can be even better men. And we believe that men are good, and we want to help men be even better, right? That's what we're doing. That's what we're putting out there. And you know what? There are people out there who've had bad experiences with men, who hate men. And or they have a different perspective on the value of men and on the value of gender in general. And you know what? They'll come against me. And I need to just know and understand that if I'm free to speak, so are they, and that it's not an outrage if they disagree with me. That's the perspective we need to have when it comes to freedom of speech. You can say what you want. Just know that people are going to disagree with you, and they have a right to that disagreement, even if they're wrong. Don't get outraged by it. This quote by Winston Churchill is one of his most famous ones. He says, "Never give in. Never give in. Never, 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 in nothing, great or small, large or petty, give in, except to convictions of honor and good sense. Never yield to force. Never yield to the apparently overwhelming might of the enemy." Imagine if when the German planes were bombing London and killing London civilians. And it got hard, and they were knocking at the door. Imagine if Churchill would have said, I give up. I give in. We're just going to let go. We can't win this. Where would the world be today? Yeah, that's a mess. So if you're going to give in, only give in for matters of conviction of honor and good sense. But don't give in to the things that you should not give in to. Churchill says, nothing in life is so exhilarating as to be shot at without results. A quick story. I went hunting with my dad and my brother one time. We took our dog. We had a beagle, and we were going through a cornfield. And as we're walking through this field, and we had permission to be there, somebody somewhere decided to fire a weapon over our heads. I don't know why. My dad was a Vietnam vet, and you heard that pew as the bullet went over us. He immediately went into war mode, and he was like, get down! And he's scanning the horizon, trying to figure out who's shooting and where it is and what's happening. But when we got back up, it was a very exhilarating moment to know that someone had shot in our general direction and didn't win and didn't get us. Churchill was a smart aleck, and he said this, don't interrupt me when I'm interrupting. I just share it because it's so Churchill. He's great. I really appreciate the wisdom of Winston Churchill, and I hope that taking the time to kind of go through the things that he has said and kind of boil them down rather than have to weed through all of it to find it. I hope this was helpful for you. That's what we want to do for this Manly Chunks of Wisdom feature that we do. And listen, if you appreciate these manly chunks of wisdom, we've got an ebook for you with lots of great quotes from lots of great men. I think there's over 500 of them in it. So if you go to manlihood.com/chunks, you can get that ebook for free. Gentlemen, I appreciate you tuning in today to Manly Chunks of Wisdom here on the Manlihood ManCast. Make sure that you guys share this with somebody if there's something that you see that's helpful. But I really appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm excited about this Season 7 launch of the Manlihood ManCast, and I'm excited about you. I really am. I care about you. I hope things are going well for you. If you want somebody to talk about it, make sure you hop in the Manlihood Man Cave on Facebook, or shoot me a message if you want. I'd gladly talk to you if you want to celebrate, if you want to kind of work through stuff. Hey, I'm your buddy. I'm here to help you. Anyway, I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Manly Chunks of Wisdom on the Manlihood ManCast. If you want to be a better husband, father, leader, a better man, you need to join our private Facebook group, the Manlihood Man Cave. Join today. Please help us out with a like, comment, share, and subscribe, and check us out at manlihood.com.